Hello and welcome back to Reading Past Midnight. I'm your host, Ron Rutstein, and today we're going to hit on two of the projects that I've got going here, and they're the Very Long Book Project and the greatest novel ever written, The Quest for the Greatest Novel Ever Written. For those of you that have been following this a little bit, in the first video we used as our base the 10 that were chosen in the Norton survey. And in that 10, we have two novels by Leo Tolstoy. Anna Karenina and War and Peace. These are all Book of the Month Club versions that I got many years ago. And War and Peace comes in at a whopping 1,100 plus pages, so that's definitely higher than our 700 page threshold for the Very Long Book Project. And Karenina comes in at 867 pages, also above the requirement. So I'm not going to get too detailed in the plot here. What we're looking for is which novel is better. And there are two distinct styles. A few years back when I was working an overnight shift a lot, I had a lot of downtime, and I decided to ask my Facebook friends which very long book should I read, and I gave them a list to choose from. War and Peace came in first. However, my friend up the road, Mr. John Hamilton, said that he read War and Peace when he was younger, and he wished he had that time back. Having now read it, I don't feel that way, but he does. And there are people that feel that way after reading anything by Tolstoy, but more often with War and Peace. So let's take a look at why and how that is. So Anna Karenina is a love story gone wrong. It has one of the most famous opening lines. Happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. True, and not quite true. Happy families go through ups and downs just like anybody else. But Tolstoy is kind of showing us a guide, because we have two families that get looked at here. The one, of course, is Anna Karenina, and she is an adulteress. She is very beautiful. She is witty. She is the woman that every man dreams of, supposedly. And she falls for an equally good-looking and exciting young man, and they deserve each other. Let's put it that way. In contrast, there is a man who falls in love with Anna Karenina, but moves beyond that. She's a married woman, she's got a child, and he wants to have a good life. So he falls in love again with someone else, and takes a little work to woo her and to lead her to join him in marriage and in creating the happy family. One of the things that Tolstoy hits in both books is land reform and the need for land reform in Russia. And the happy family is an aristocratic landowner who is dedicated to improving the lot of the people that live under him. The serfs were basically slaves, a little bit better than slaves, maybe more like indentured servants, but they had horrible lives, and he wanted to improve their life and felt he could improve his farming output by improving the lives of the people that are doing the farming. War and Peace is a historical novel. It's dense. It deals with the Napoleonic invasion of Russia. Spoiler, Napoleon loses. And Tolstoy ends the story there with the loss in Russia, although Tsar Alexander's forces, I believe, did chase Napoleon all the way back to Paris and were kind of conquering heroes in Paris. My sister-in-law, when she started reading this, was having difficulty because the translation that she had didn't translate the bits in French. And I think one of the things that Tolstoy was trying to point out was the Russians loved French culture. They loved the French aristocracy. They loved the French people. They loved everything French, from clothing to food to music, the whole thing. So it's kind of like, why is Napoleon going to take over Russia when they're already so French, or wanting to be so French? But that was Napoleon's way. He had to conquer the world, and we periodically run across dictators who have to conquer the world. I don't know where this comes from, but there are a lot of them, and most of them don't get anywhere with it, but a few of them do. Napoleon was one of them. Hitler, of course, was another. Stalin didn't have to take over the world. He just destroyed Russia. But in this, there's a lot of history, and some people get bogged down in the history, and some people get dragged down by the battle scenes. And to my mind, there isn't that much. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of battle scenes, and you find a lot of the people, the characters that get put into the war, have very different impressions of the war. At one point, there's a young man who early in the novel has an important scene where he is hunting, and he loves riding on horseback and hunting, and he equates the war to his hunting expeditions. And there are certain people who love the thrill of war, and at this point, that character did. Now, frankly, I don't remember everyone's name in this, and I'm not even going to try. One thing I do recommend that you consider doing is, if you're going to read War and Peace, print up a list of characters. It makes it a little easier to keep track of who's who and who's doing what. There are so many characters in it. Not nearly as many characters in Anna Karenina. In Anna Karenina, you get deep dives into the characters. And in War and Peace, you get some deep dives of some of the characters, but not as deep as you get into the lives of Anna and Vronsky. You get to see court life in both. And both novels mostly deal with the aristocracy, although both novels have points where the serfs come in, land reform comes in. Oddly enough, he digresses periodically into his views on Masonry, which I kind of laugh at. I don't know what Masonry was like in Russia at that time. I do know what it's like now, and granted, it's very different than it was. But having been a Mason, I found that section of the novel very amusing. The first time I had a literary discussion about Tolstoy with a friend of mine, he used the phrase, Anna Karenina is the better novel. War and Peace is the more important novel. And I thought that was an interesting take, and I did recently on Leaf by Leaf, who I watch his YouTube channel periodically. He was talking about Cormac McCarthy, and he made the comment that Satri is his best novel, but Blood Meridian is his most important novel. That was the second time I ran across that, and I found it interesting. I don't know that I agree, but I understand where it's coming from. Anna Karenina is a much more accessible novel. People that read long novels and enjoy it can read Anna Karenina without great difficulty other than the length. And little bit of keeping track of who the characters are. That's not true of War and Peace. For me, War and Peace is a better novel because of the depth, the historical depth, the burning of Moscow, things like that that are put into War and Peace that you don't necessarily have in Anna Karenina, and that adds so much more substance to a novel for me. And I understand why a lot of people are put off by War and Peace. It's a difficult read. Most people that start it don't get through it, I think. I know a lot of people that have tried it and not finished it. I know a few people that finished it and didn't like it, and I know a few people that finished it and loved it. I'm in the finished it and loved it category. To my mind, War and Peace is the better novel. However, for most people, Anna Karenina is going to be the better novel. So what I want you to do is hit the comments down below. Which one do you think is the better novel? On the Norton list, you might remember, I think Anna Karenina came in as the 3rd best novel ever written, and War and Peace was down a couple rungs. But there was no Dostoevsky on that list, which I found very interesting in and of itself, because I love Dostoevsky. So, which one do you think is the better novel? And how many of you have really read both novels? So let's hit that in the comments, and let's see where you guys stand. Do we take Anna Karenina as the better novel, or do we take War and Peace as the better novel? My vote, which is only one vote, goes for War and Peace. Let me know what your votes are and where you think, and we will handle it accordingly. Thank you very much. If you made it this far, please hit the like and subscribe button, and also hit those comments down below. Which do you think is the better novel? And what, if any, do you think is the greatest novel ever written that we need to put into consideration for this? Tolstoy, definitely one of the greatest novelists ever. Thank you very much. Please hit the like and subscribe button and help support the channel. It's growing slowly but surely. We're getting more people. I think this is one that maybe a lot of people might pick up and be interested in. Thank you very much.